This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset, going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet almost shut down because they're like, are you blind? Do you not know what's going on out there? Do you not see what's happening?
You just did 250,000 cold calls. Congratulations. Go. Okay, we're on. Thank you. I'm not sure if I skipped it there. I skipped a beat there for a minute, but I missed the last part of just that intro. But here we are today, and I'm your host, Cruz, and I'm obviously with Sales Arbiter. We're here at the Pipe Podcast, and I am so excited to have Merit Kahn with us today. Merit, thank you so much for being on, and I'm excited to get into this. But before we go and just start going in, full bore, I would love for the audience and those that are watching and listening to get to know you a little bit better, Merit. So maybe you can give them a little background, tell them a little bit about like what part of the world you run and what you do in your organization, and just some of the high level, if that's okay.
Sure. I can sum up what I do with the ABCs. I'm an author, I'm a business owner, and I'm a comedian. I'm also a mom, but I file that under salesperson and comedian. Yeah, well, ABCs, the S stands for sales expert. So yeah, I'm a performer, I'm a producer, I'm a playwright as well. So I have a one-woman comedy show, and I use that and I incorporate fun and humor into my stories for keynotes, for conferences and trainings that I lead for sales teams, because I believe that sales training does not have to be boring.
That's right. It doesn't. You're absolutely right on that. And what's so interesting is you talk about humor, and I'd like to jump into that one, because how important is it, Merit? Like when you're first meeting someone, when you're bonding and rapporting with them, when you're trying to make a connection, like you're trying to figure out, maybe what the compelling reason is for them to want to utilize your service, or if there's some way that you can help them, with their business or with the challenge that they're having. How important is it to like mix in, comedy and, all those things we talk about, joyfulness, happiness, like let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, we have all heard that, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So the question is, how are you really conducting yourself and moving in the world in a manner in which people want to know, like, and trust you? And the great thing about humor is that it opens people's minds to new possibilities. So if you think about it, it's hard to be in a bad mood when you're in a comedy show.
Yeah.
And so when I really started to look at what humor is able to do and how that relates to businesses, in as a speaker, as a professional speaker, which I've been doing since 1998. We have a saying in the speaking business, if you don't have to be funny, but you won't get paid. The only, if you want to get bookings, be funny. And
Right.
the reality of that is when an audience is relaxed, when their minds are open to receive new information, that is when you have the opportunity to make the greatest impact. So if you think about sales humor from that perspective, the goal is not to go in there with your, the latest joke from a joke book, but to genuinely have a worldview that there's something funny out there, and to be that person that can provide a little bit of stress relief for the prospects and clients that you're working with. That's how you become one of those people that they want to be around And the more you're around, the more opportunities you have to connect, do business, collaborate, refer. And that's a big part of it. Open minds close deals. So the first
Wow,
step to a
that's good.
closed deal is an open mind. The first thing you want to do is open them with a little bit of humor.
That's really great. That's really great. Open minds, closed deals. Wow. So let's talk a little bit about that piece, which you touched on right there, which is really, making that connection with your prospect, which is always very important, right? But not every joke that you've made on stage, it has people, crouching over, like grabbing their gut because it's so funny, right? Some of
Yeah, I
them
don't know what you're talking about, Crispin. All my people laugh.
but but some of the times we have to understand, like, the way that we say things or do things, it sometimes doesn't it falls flat on our potential prospect, and there's learning involved when that happens. So how do you translate that from the stage to the boardroom? How does that translate?
Well, first of all, I don't mean for people to think that they have to go in there like with a like badum chink. Like you don't have to always. You're not on, right? You're not a
Right.
comedian. You're an expert in the industry that you represent, your
Hmm.
company, your products, your services, your offers, and so you're not there to be the comedian. You're
Right.
there to provide value, solve problems, be the right so help your prospects and clients by asking them the right questions so that they
Mhm.
can discover for themselves whether or not you have the solution to solve the problems that are keeping them up at night. So that's the main objective. The humor is really just to open them up to be comfortable to share with you what the real issues are. And
Mhm.
so I just want to be responsible in our conversation that we're not, I'm not out there teaching people to be comedians, but I
Right.
am letting them know that humor is a great equalizer to let people relax so that they can
Mhm.
bring the defense wall down, answer the tough questions that you're going to ask of them. And
Mhm.
so, really it's about I think the the thing that you want to understand with humor is to let it become your worldview. So
Mhm.
when I took a stand-up comedy class purely by accident, honestly, in
Mhm.
2014,
Wow.
I my neighbor took this class and she was an accountant. Like she was not known for people doubling over with laughter.
Right.
In all of our conversations, like I can't remember like her like making me laugh hysterically. And then when I went to see her comedy show after she took this class, I was in stitches and I thought, okay, if you could do that, I could do that.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had a thriving business as a keynote speaker, and I wanted to be even more deliberately funny in the programs that I delivered for audiences.
Mhm.
And once I studied the art of how to craft a joke, how to edit out the unnecessary words, how to really create a universal humor, the rule of threes, and like there's all kinds of stand up rules and strategies. Once I understood them, I could use them for my advantage.
Mm.
I think that's like anything else. If you don't understand it, you can't use it. It can be used against you. Like in sales, when I would teach
Mhm.
people to understand their behavioral styles. When you don't understand your behavioral styles, it's going to work against you. When you understand how to address, how to adjust, how to identify the behavioral styles of the person that you're talking to, now you can use it as a tool, not to be manipulative, but to help you speak someone else's language. And so comedy is a tool that helps you in those kinds of situations. And I think that's just a tool that once you understand it and it becomes your worldview, you anything that frustrates me now, I immediately think, well, I'm gonna write a joke about that. I'm a little frustrated right now. I don't know what the joke is yet,
Right.
but it's coming.
Wow. That is so great. That is so great. So some of the experiences that you've had, I'm sure have helped to construct the approach that you use when you're engaging, with prospects that are maybe interested in utilizing, you and your service and your organization, or the way that you're engaging with current clients. Would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Well, I think that, you know, the things that I teach and the things that I practice, uh, really, they fall into three categories. So everything that I do in for my own business and how I work with audiences, whether I'm the opening keynote speaker at a conference, or I'm training a sales team inside a company, or I'm working one-on-one with an entrepreneur, the all of the lessons come back to these three categories. And so there's things, it's about having a strong mindset, it's about having solid mechanics of selling, and it's about being in consistent sales motion. So mindset, mechanics, motion, those are really the three principles that are the foundation of all of my work and have been
Mm.
for 20 plus years. When you think about it, mindset, what you think, mechanics, what you say, and motion, what you do, all of that is important to being successful in anything you do. And so when I'm working with somebody or evaluating whether a prospect is going to be a good match for the kinds of work that I can do, the kinds of expertise that I have to share, I'm I'm listening for where are the gaps. Do they have some gaps in what they believe is possible? Do they have some gaps in some of the very nuts and bolts? That's why I'll call it mechanics. The nuts and bolts of what they're saying in a sales interaction, or are they just not doing enough activities consistently, or they're not doing the right things? And so we're
Mhm.
looking for these gaps, and that's where I know to offer solutions to fill those gaps so they can be more successful consistently across the board.
Mm, that's so good. It's so good. And I mean, you had me at behaviors, just to let you know.
Good to know.
I mean, when we talk about those types of things, around with our clients too at Sales Arbiter, I mean, we're talking about, understanding your prospects, behavior type, and really trying to make a connection with them that maybe others can't or haven't in the past, and
Right.
really understanding the compelling reason on why, our product or service could help them. And, it's along the same lines as what you said, but man, it's so refreshing to hear someone else talk about, how they're engaging with their clients and with potential prospects in that same way. So pivoting off of that just a little bit, let's talk about the uniqueness of how you train, for example, a sales team. Like, what makes that different in your world, Merit, than maybe your traditional, sales training program that some of these sales teams they're forced to go to? I always pick on the $299 sales course. For $299, Merit, we're going to teach you how to be able to sell. You're going to be better at what you do. You're going to
Yeah.
make a ton of money, and you're going to be able to do things after this course that you've never been able to do. Right. And so I always pick on that $299 sales course, but I know your approach is unique. Yours is different, and it's fun, and they get a lot of value out of it. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely different. First of all, it's $301, so it's not $299.
Of course.
I'm much more premium than that.
Yes, I know.
Um,
I know. That's
no,
right.
it's not the cheapest training in town either.
Right.
But I think that when you have more skin in the game, you pay
Mhm.
attention at a different level, and that's
Mm.
why I love the entrepreneurs I work with, because I know that they're coming in at a different level of commitment, right, to make something
Right.
work. But I, I've trained so many different sales teams over the years. I know that there are people that feel like hostages in the room and they're there because they have to be. And I think that's where humor, especially at the beginning of a program, even before, I try to prepare my audiences for the fact that this is going to be a different experience before I even get there. And so
Mhm.
there's some pre-work, right? There's some things that you can do to set the stage, much like a performance. There's um there's the name on the marquee, and there's the music that comes into the theater as people are walking in, and then there's the program. So if you think about it from a performance perspective, you have some opportunities for touch points to connect with people before you actually begin the project, whether that's a new project that, a new client engagement, or I'm coming in for training. And so I want them to know, hey, this is going to be different. By the way, this isn't going to be boring. We're going to have some fun. And so maybe I send a video that they all get a chance to watch beforehand. And I make sure that I'm funny in that video. I make sure that I acknowledge that I know some of them are hostages. And so I'm setting the stage
Right.
for them to say, all right, maybe she's not going to be so bad.
That's
And
great.
I think that's important because, again, I'm following that same philosophy. The first step to a closed deal is an open mind. And I know that no matter how excited somebody is to learn or expand or grow, I know that some aspect of them is coming into something new and new to them. They're coming in with a closed mind. Some part of their mind is closed to, like, all right, let's see what she's got. There's a little skepticism. There always is. So
Sure.
first thing that I want to do on a sales call, on a training session, on a keynote program is open their minds to a new possibility, open their minds to receive the information so that they're prepared to relax, to enjoy the experience, because I know when they're laughing, they're learning. And,
Mhm.
that's why I say sales training and, programs they can be content rich,
Mhm.
but they can also be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And that's what people need these days. It's a
I
stress
you're
relief.
you are so right. And I think somewhere it gets lost in translation. And I know, I understand there's some people that are watching and listening out there right now, and they're like, well, this is my job. It's my job, Merit, and this is what I do. I have to make 50 or 60 calls a day or 100 calls a day, and I have to fill the pipeline, and I have to, make sure my talk time is up, and I got to make sure I'm meeting my quota and all of those things. But I think it gets lost. Like, it's supposed to be fun. Like, sales is supposed to be fun also. And and I don't know if you prescribe to that, but I mean, the opportunity that we have to have chosen this path of sales. I enjoy understanding, like, what what is this, entrepreneur, what's this business owner, what's this salesperson, what's the end goal? Like, what are they looking to accomplish? Like, what is truly, that top of that list? And can we meet the goal, or can we exceed it? Like, that's what gets me going.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people talk about, well, when you go in to consult with an organization, you should be talking about, like, and you ask the question, well, what keeps you up at night? Well, I like to focus on, like, what gets you up in the morning, like, what gets you going, like, what excites you, like, what goals or aspirations do you have for yourself, professionally or personally? Um, I don't know. That just seems like a better approach to me. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I'm gonna push back on you just a little bit when you said, sales is supposed to be fun. I mean, sales is a job, sales is a profession. It's not
Sure.
always gonna be fun. There's nothing fun about not making your quota. There's
Mm,
nothing fun about losing
true.
a client. There's nothing fun about being rejected. And that is absolutely part of the sales game. There is
Right.
nothing fun about making cold calls. I can't even pretend to like those myself.
Sure.
And anybody who pretends or says that they like them is
Good.
completely lying, or they're not making enough of them. Like,
There we go. There.
just it's not fun. Let's just leave that there. Now,
Okay.
having said that, it doesn't mean that you can't find ways to enjoy some of the things that you have to do, or even if you use semantics like, I don't have to, I get to. It's like, okay, like, Okay, but back here in the real world, I don't
Right.
get to make 25 cold calls a day. That is something I need to do to make my numbers, right? Like
That's right.
I don't like to be in an argument with reality, and you know, changing the wording is honestly like lipstick on a pig. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not going to make you love it.
Right.
Having said that, I do think there are ways that you can prospect to grow your business
Mhm.
that are more fun for you than other ways. So when I'm building a prospecting plan with my clients, I will ask them things like, there's a million different ways you could prospect. Cold calling, you can, reach out on LinkedIn, you go to networking events, you could speak at conferences, right? Like there's a lot of different ways. So you just have to think which of those ways are more fun for me.
Hmm.
I I'm one of those. I'm ridiculous. I like meeting people at trade shows. I have
Mm.
worked trade show floors for my clients. Um,
Mm.
I don't know all the ins and outs of their business, but they put me in their little trade show outfit, and I'm the person to bring people in as they're walking past. Like I like stopping people in their tracks, doing
Right.
something funny, bringing them in, and then when they ask me a technical question, I hand them off to an expert.
Yeah.
But that's me. And that's
Right.
not everybody. So I think
Right.
one of the things that you want to do is figure out, based on my personality, behavioral style, what are some of the activities that I find are more enjoyable, that at the same time while I'm doing them, I'm also fulfilling on my goal and my actions to prospect and grow my business or help my clients or something like that, right? That's
Mhm.
why people do business on the golf course, right? I
Yeah.
enjoy golf and conversation, and I'm entertaining prospects. Like that's a thing. If you're not a golfer, you're probably not going to do that.
Yep.
So I just encourage people to figure out, like, what are the things they really enjoy doing,
Mhm.
and how can you incorporate some of the things you do have to do into some of the things that you do enjoy.
Right. That is good. That is good. And I'm glad you pushed back. I love that part. I love
Give
that
me
part.
something else.
That's right. That's right. We'll keep going. So, let's talk. You talked about which I'm I'm in full belief and agreement with, which is mindset. And you know, we're around the edges of it when you talk about, okay, maybe it's not as, maybe sales isn't as fun as Crispin Cruz makes it out to be, but then let's talk a little bit about how important mindset is as you're starting to, as you're when you're having those days that maybe are not going as planned, right?
Yeah.
Or you're not meeting your goal, or where does that, where does mindset play that part for you, Merit? And what would you like to share with the listening and viewing audience on that?
So mindset is incredibly important. I've been very frustrated earlier in my career at how to make a difference as a coach, trainer, consultant, speaker. It's like, how do you really shift someone's mindset?
Mhm.
I've spent an inordinate amount of time reading, researching, um, really doing a lot of work to figure out that there's really three parts of mindset, and this once I made this distinction, it really helped me work with my clients because, well, let me say the three pieces of mindset are: first, your internal mind. That is what you say to yourself.
Mhm.
Then there's your behavioral mind. That's what your actions say to other people. And then there's your emotional mind. And that's really how well you understand your own emotions and
Mhm.
what triggers you and how your emotions impact other people.
Mhm.
So, I think what gets confusing is there's been a lot of talk about, oh, you got to have a strong mindset, and we've come to think of that as like, oh, well, either I'm meditating, 10 minutes a day, or I'm saying affirmations, they're on post-its on my mirror, like there's some things that have been around for a while, and if those things work for you, great. I'm not suggesting that they're not valuable, but I don't think that it's whole and complete to say, if I say I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, and gosh darn it, people like me in my mirror 3 times, that all of a sudden I'm gonna have this strong mindset. It doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
So when I when I work with people on internal mind, I have them list out some of the beliefs that they have about sales, about money, about self-worth, about the kind of decision makers they're comfortable with.
Mm,
And then they look at them on paper and they get to choose. Well, this one supported me up until a certain point in my career, and now I've outgrown that belief. And so now I want to freely replace it and choose a different belief. And so sometimes I was just working with a group on this exercise, and there was somebody in the group and they were like, I don't know, like, I've had this belief for so long. Let's just say it was $100,000 is a lot of money. And that was a lot of money when they made that belief when they were 30 years old and they didn't have a family. But now that belief doesn't cut it. And
right.
so they had to reorient their brain about their money concept. And they were having a hard time about, like, well, replacing that with a bigger number. And I finally said, well, what makes that initial belief any more true than the belief you are replacing it with?
Mm,
And there's no good answer for that. So you get to choose freely as an adult, looking at the beliefs you want. Keep the ones that support you, rewrite the ones that don't.
mm,
Um, Behavioral mind, we could talk at length. And if you've done disc profiles or you're familiar with any of that, there's plenty of information on that. That there's nothing unique about what I do in that category, except that
mm,
I do think people need to understand it to have it be useful as a tool. But emotional mind, uh, boy, that is something that really makes a difference, and not enough people are really tapping into the power of that. So let me give you a
mm.
quick example. There are, in emotional intelligence, there's like 15 different things we can assess for. Two of them you talked about. I know without testing you, you're a high optimist. You're like me. We're both, the glass is full. Like, what do you mean half full? It's like you're looking
Yeah,
at it wrong. It's full. It's
that's
just
right.
right. So
That's right.
we're both optimistic. But uh sometimes in sales, we see high optimist and low reality test. So
Mhm,
that's when a prospect says to you, "Oh my gosh, Crispin, yeah, I really like what you're talking about. I think this really could be a good solution for us."
mhm.
And you're like, "Great." And you just think, "Got that one. Like,
Got that?
press
It's a
hard.
sale.
Third
It's
copy's
a
yours."
sale, baby.
Yep. Like,
Yep.
spending my commission on the way home. Um, but with low reality test, we might skip over some of the important questions that
Mhm.
maybe someone else asks after we've left the office.
That's right.
So y- if you what you really want with a strong emotional mind is that you're balanced in all of these different attributes.
Mm,
Instead of the highs and lows, you've learned how to balance. So even though I'm highly optimistic with low reality test, I know what my strategies are so that I can be more balanced out there in the world where it matters. So in
that's right.
sales, somebody says to me, "Gosh, Merritt, I think your program is going to be great. I would love to have you speak at our conference and then train our team and then work
Mhm.
with our executive, leaders on their emotional intelligence for leaders. Like, we want your whole package." And I'm like, "Great." Um,
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled that you're excited and you can see value in all the different ways that we can work together. But
Mhm.
let me ask you a few questions about, who else you're going to involve in the the
There
final
we go.
decision. What are their concerns? What did we not talk about? Is there anything that you could think of that would come up to have you change your mind? Right? Like,
Yeah.
I want to draw out all of those hidden objections or possible areas where we could, you know, it could go backfire.
Yeah.
And I want to do that while they're feeling optimistic, but I don't want to step over that because
Mhm.
I'm optimistic.
That's
That's where
right.
my optimism will hurt me.
Yep. Yep. So we call it in our world, we call it happy ears,
Yeah.
right? When the prospect or when the salesperson gets happy ears, they're hearing it and they're getting excited and they're like, okay, this is like you said, they're spending the commission before they get home. I love it. I just love it. It's so good. Um, wow, Meredith, that is some really good stuff. When you talk about the three minds. So listen, I know we're coming up before we do the questions that for the sales arbiter 7. I wanted to briefly just jump into, your book. Um, Author is also part of that equation for Merit Kahn. So, would you mind telling us a little bit about your book? And the way that I'd like you to frame it, if you give me permission to do this, is once they're turning down those last few pages and then they set it down and they're able to digest everything that they've just read. What are the 2 or 3 things that you're hoping that they walk away with?
Sure. So my first book I wrote in 2016 was called Myth Shift: Challenging the Truths That Sabotage Success. And I wrote that when I was still married. So it's a different last name, but it's still me. My
No
second book,
ghostwriting there. No
yeah.
ghostwriting.
My second book is soon to be released. We had a little bit of a delay, but that current working title is Are You Open To? And in addition to writing the books, I also wrote my one woman comedy show, which the original title was Book of Merit. And the new title moving forward is Who Chiseled That Over the Door? So sometimes you got to redecide, the different brands and things like that.
Right.
But here's what's common between all 3 of those very different pieces.
Mhm.
Because my fundamental worldview, my belief is that uh, things are within our control to edit, right? We can always change course. We can nothing, anything is possible, but sometimes you have to rewrite your story to
Mm,
rewire your future.
mm,
And I think truthfully, I mean, my books are great. I've gotten a lot of nice praise from them about them, but my one woman comedy show is like the best lessons I've learned throughout my life wrapped in this hilarious, entertaining piece. So you actually forget you're learning something, right? And really, the essence of that is your past does not dictate your future. You
mm,
My whole show is I tell you the highs and lows of my life story. It's not just my life story, right? Because we all have highs and lows.
sure.
But when I can show you in a theater through comedy that I can laugh at some of the lowest points of my life,
Mm,
it gives you permission not only to laugh at the challenging parts of your experience, but also to look at them in a new light, to actually rewrite the narrative that you may have told yourself over and over again for years, your particular worldview about that experience. And once I realized that everything in my life is up for grabs, there's not a story about my past that isn't up for grabs that I can't rewrite as a comedy bit.
mm,
And once I did that, once I learned how to do that, there was like my whole future is different. And now
wow.
I'm literally, in addition to running a sales training company, which I'll be, handing over to other people at some point, but which would, that's the goal for that part of the business. But I'm literally taking my one woman comedy show on tour, and my
Mm,
keynotes are more theatrical in the delivery because I want people to get the rich content that there is, which
yeah.
is much easier to consume when you're laughing your ass off. I don't know
Right.
if I can say
Right.
that.
No, you can say it. You can say it. That's great. It's my show. You can do whatever you want.
All right, well, laugh our asses off then.
I love it. I love it. Mara, I just can't tell you how excited I am that you're here, and thank you for sharing that. And it's so good. When you talk about rewriting your story, and I mean, it just resonates so loudly with me. And so this is the time that we typically jump into the Sales Arbiter 7. And our friend James Lipton helped me with this concept of just asking 7 questions that maybe you've never been asked before, or maybe you have, I don't know, but they're just to show the audience, the listeners and the viewers, they may hear something or get to know you a little differently than what came out in the interview or what they've known about you. Now, before we jump into that, though, I will say this: when is your book release? When does that release? Your newest one?
The new one probably won't come out until the new year. I've just got too many projects that I'm working on that
Okay,
are taking
well,
precedence. So
I understand, but I'm gonna ask right now for you to come back. So when you release that book, then we can do part of that on
I'd be honored.
the
Yeah.
on the Pipe podcast, but that would be great.
But
Okay, so we're going to
the
jump.
show tour is happening now. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
get on the
Let's not
list.
forget to talk about that before when we talk at the end. How do they get in touch with you? How do they see you? I'm going to make sure that the viewers have that information as well. So let's jump into the Sales Arbiter 7. So the first question: what is your favorite word? What's your
My
favorite?
favorite word is open. I just feel like when you are open to new possibilities, new experiences, new relationships, then at your mind, when your mind is open, all good things can happen.
Oh, I knew we were going to be fast friends because you and you're absolutely right. Like talking about our behavior types aligning. Oh my goodness. That's fantastic. Okay. What is your least favorite word?
Impossible. As soon as someone tells me that's impossible, or they're being negative about it, I shut down. I
Yeah,
don't like that.
that's
Oh,
it.
I don't shut down. I'm like, really? I'll show you. So, yeah.
I'll show you whether it's impossible or not.
Yeah.
What's something that could make your day?
I think that I get a lot of joy from other people um, having an insight or experience
Mm,
as a result of something that I shared. So it really does make my day when I hear from clients or somebody even that had been my audience. I mean, secretly, I don't know if I should admit this, but I have this testimonial video from people who saw my comedy show, and I
mm.
I might start my day watching that every day.
I
It's
love it.
just it's just nice. It's nice to start with knowing that something you've done has been valuable.
That's right. That's so good. That's good. What's something that could ruin your day? Now you can't say, well, the video won't play.
Yeah.
That's not an answer. That's
That's
not an
fair.
answer.
Something that would ruin my day. I will tell you just honestly, when I don't get enough sleep,
Mhm.
um, I don't feel I don't feel I'm at my best. I think it sounds like a little thing, but I've noticed that I don't have the same quality of a
Mm,
day when I'm not well rested.
mm. I see. Okay. Okay. What's a sound or noise that you love?
Well, it's fresh for me because last night, not only did I perform a comedy show, but the headliner of the show had a 15-month-old, her baby boy, was
Mhm.
at the theater at this. Yeah, there you go. That's the show I did last night, and
Wow.
so our headliner Janae Burris brought her little boy, and at one point during the show, he just erupted into some laughter. I don't know if he was laughing at a joke. I'm kind of hoping he didn't really understand half the things we were saying, but it that is probably my all-time favorite sound is the sound of a child just in unbridled laughter.
Laughter.
Yeah.
That's beautiful and wonderful. That's great. What's a sound or a noise that you hate?
I think, I mean, the first thing that popped into my mind would be that screech right before a car crash or
Oh,
something. And I think why that bothers me is, it's because somebody's life just changed.
mm,
Something just did not go according to plan.
mm,
And I think like that's the thought I have, when you're in traffic and you see that wreck on the highway and I send them love and like something about your life just changed and I hope you find grace in that. And
mm.
I don't know, it's just that's a sound that I think it's not the sound itself, but it's what I know that sound means.
Yeah, what you imprint on that
Yeah.
event,
Yeah.
which is yeah, that's right. That's right. Wow, that's good. What
I also
profession?
hate the sound of my ex-husband's voice, but
Yeah,
that's
there we well, I'm glad you said that out loud too.
I hate it.
All right, one last one. What profession other than your own would you have liked to attempt?
Well, I am right now. I mean, I'm really going from business owner, sales expert to, performer. I mean, I guess you could say I've always done that, but I would never have defined myself like that. I would never have said, I'm a playwright, I'm a producer, I'm a performer. And so in the next 30 days, my website will look a lot different because I'm really stepping into that persona of, I'm a performer and a producer. And what I do is I produce keynote performances for corporate audiences. I produce theater shows for entertainment audiences. And then I produce comedy shows, that's where I let my naughty thoughts out.
That's great. That is great. Well, okay. So this is the time that you can, I want people to be able to find you, Merit. I want them to know where you're going next, what's happening, what's the best way for people to reach out to you. If they want you for a keynote, if they want you to, if they just want to get in touch with you, or if they want to see, the show that's coming. Can you give them some information on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is the hub of all things. So that is meritkahn.com, MERITKAHN.com. And the best way is there's a Let's Talk button right at the upper right-hand corner of the page. And if you click that, you'll get my schedule. Just book 15 minutes for us to say hello. Ask me a question. If there's something I can do to help, that's a great way to start a conversation. And I would say the other place that I play often is LinkedIn. And if we connect on LinkedIn, then you have access. You can kind of check out, like, who are my other connections? Is there anybody I know that can help you? Is there something now that you know more about me? And she's like, oh, she was doing this tour. Do I know theater bookers or whatever? Like, I don't know. Maybe there's something you could do to help me. So those are two places I frequent. And once the website revisions are up and running, there'll be a page for theater shows and a page for comedy club appearances. And you'll be able to sign up to be on the list so that you'll know exactly where I'll be performing next.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm already a super fan, so I am so glad that you were on today, and thank you for sharing, your experiences and knowledge and what you're doing in the market and in the realm of sales as well. And I'm sure that our listening and viewing audience got a lot out of it today. So I really appreciate you being on, and I'm really excited to have you back. So we'll get you on the schedule for some time after that next book release, and also maybe to talk a little bit more about your tour, because that's just super exciting.
It
so
is.
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're coming, you gotta let us know. I'll
I'll be in Florida in first quarter. So
Okay.
first quarter 2024. So that's close enough. You can come.
That's close enough. That's right. That's close enough. Well, I always close every show like this, Merit. So keep selling and have fun doing it. Thank you so much, Merit. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
This is the reason why you should buy. And we're not asking the most important question, the reason why it was important for them, in their heart of hearts. Like, that's a sale. Then we're going to see results, the mindset. Going into every opportunity, saying to yourself, I would love to have the business, but I don't need the business. When they talk about building their organization just through referral, that means they're missing it. The internet